Generally calm people have read it. What made you lose your absolute crap that time? My 7th freaking trip to the DMV when trying to reinstate my license. Every single time they scrutinized my paperwork and always managed to find something wrong and would send me away to fix it. On the 7th trip, they finally resorted to, "You have no proof that you ever had a license." Despite my piles of paperwork showing my driving record, among other things, I refused to leave the seat and said, "You people are freaking monsters." The manager was called. We argued. He said he believed that I had a license, but there was just no proof and he couldn't risk accepting my paperwork in case someone checked it. I said I refused to leave the seat until I knew exactly what was needed. Manager said, "Tell you what, I can contact last state I lived in, and I could get a verification that I had a license there. It would take 3 minutes." That's when I yelled in the DMV, "Why wasn't that the first freaking thing you said?" Anyway, I got my license back. The DMV, capable of sending even the most calm people into a rage. Story 2. I was always a really quiet kid, even as a toddler, apparently. So one of the first times I remember losing my crap was when I got really tired of this 3rd grader picking on me on the bus. I was in kindergarten, and this kid kept popping his head over my seat and poking me. I timed it out, and the next time he did, I punched him straight in the nose, which he immediately started crying. I didn't know it at the time, but apparently the kid's parents tried to get some disciplinary action against me. That was until they found out I wasn't the same age or older. They just didn't want to make a big stink out of their kid getting slapped by a kindergartner. Story 3. It was Halloween, and I was sitting out the front of my house watching my sister take my niece, who was around 4, trick-or-treating. The people who lived above us, who lived in a maisonette, decided to shoot a firework at them. This is the only time I've lost my crap. Got them inside the house and made sure they were all right. My sister had only a few non-serious burns on her arm and managed to shield my niece from the explosion. At that point, I was just so angry. Went up to their door and started banging on it, demanding they come out. They didn't answer, so I started trying to kick the door in. My mom and brother dragged me away and back inside to calm me down. Half an hour later, the police arrived because the neighbors had called them about me. Luckily, after we explained what had actually happened, I didn't get any trouble. But neither did they. Story 4. I've been dealing with listening to my dad and his ex-girlfriend have screaming matches and occasionally getting dragged into it for like a year. It started again one evening and she addressed me, demanding me to answer something or another to fuel her argument against my dad. I was just trying to play a game at the time and I just kind of snapped and screamed, "I don't know, and I don't care, and I'm tired of your fighting." It wasn't much, but I've never raised my voice ever, and I think it kind of just stunned them both into silence. She walked out of the house. Lol. Story 5. I used to be a waitress and never caused any drama. I was there to make money for my wedding. I showed up on time, didn't take smoke breaks, never on my phone, and rolled with the punches. The 2 best compliments in my life came from a manager. One was him thanking me for not making him know my fiance's name. Never had problems to deal with at work like the other girls, and I didn't chit-chat. And when all hell's breaking loose, he called me his calm little Hindu calf, which still makes me laugh. Anyway, this schmuck's cook wouldn't stop calling me pet names and trying to touch me. Every time I said loudly and clearly, "Don't touch me," and "My name isn't Sweetheart, it's Hopeful Kitty," everyone knew how I felt and tried to tell me, "That's just how he is. Let it go." I told him that the way I am is that I don't want him to touch me. When the manager talked to him, he'd stop for a few weeks, then start again. After months of this, I told the manager that it didn't stop and I was going to file a complaint. The manager talked to the owner and asked if he'd rather have the cook or me because I was on the verge of quitting. They agreed they'd rather have me 100 times over, this schmuck. Dude was gone by the next day and I got an escort to my car every night. Turns out if you're drama-free and calm, people really listen when you have a problem. Story 6. Back when I was working retail, I was manning the return desk when this woman came in to return 2 totes full of clearing clothes. She wants to rebuy them all since clearing stuff is now cheaper. That's against the rules and I explain why. But per usual, she gets a manager and the manager caves. Since she bought this stuff in 3 different receipts and mixed them all up, this transaction is fixing to take 30 minutes at least. I'm frustrated, but hiding it well. 15 minutes in, I hear some commotion off to the side. I turn my head and see that this woman's 5 or so completely unsupervised kids have piled onto a flat cart and are pushing it around. I don't know why it set me off so bad, but I pointed and yelled at them, raising my voice for the first and last time during my 10-year stint. The entire place fell silent, and the customer was so mad at her kids that she took her stuff and left. A couple co-workers said seeing me get angry was really unsettling. A blessing that comes with being the quiet one, I guess. Story 7. My brother and I played travel sports for a few seasons as kids. One trip I was at the pool with some of his teammates messing around in the water and the coach's kid was being a schmuck, as usual. My brother was one of the smaller kids on his team, so the coach's son would mess with him a lot. Most of the kids on my brother's team disliked him, but didn't speak up so they wouldn't be next. He thought it would be funny to pick up my brother's drink right in front of him and mess with it. My dad taught me from a young age not to let anyone mess with my brother or sister, so I got seriously angry. I took a good running start and shoulder-checked him into the pool. Since he had just gone there, he hadn't taken his clothes off yet and cried because his phone and iPod got ruined. He literally ran out yelling, "I'm telling my dad!" Well, that backfired because everyone stuck up for my brother and the coach was not happy to find out what a schmuck his son was being, so he was the only one to get in any trouble. Story 8. In high school, we had a friend who had chosen to be a little more promiscuous than others. We honestly didn't care. Besides enjoying intimacy, her personality was entirely the same. However, it's high school, so one girl in particular took it upon herself to often shame and tell this girl she was a witch. We would all stick up for her, be the bigger person, and walk away. Except one day. This girl decided to shove through her group, knocking said friend over, causing her to hurt herself. She laughed and called her a witch. I completely lost my crap. Grabbed the girl by the hair as she walked away and yanked it, and then screamed at her that she's a hateful person because her mom chose substances over her. Then as I walked away, I pushed the door open so hard that when she tried to follow me, it swung back and hit her in the face. She stopped calling my friend a witch after that. Not my proudest moment, and I've not ever used information that's meant to be private against another person again. Story 9. In healthcare, you get yelled at a lot for stupid stuff. Where's my ginger ale? Screw that doctor. He's a schmuck for taking too long, etc. But one patient crossed the line. She didn't like that I called the previous hospital she was at the night before to get a record so I could see what was done. Completely legal. Done all the time so things aren't missed or repeated unnecessarily, and yes, she signed a release so we could do it. She then came out of her room and threw a full styrofoam cup of her mess at me. Dodged it by a millimeter, but it ruined a computer monitor. She then said, "Witch, I'ma leave here and mess up your family." Done. Crap lost. Screamed for security and personally put her back in her room with the help of every tech and nurse in the emergency department. 4-point restrained her for out-of-control behavior that was a danger to the staff, and called the police. Once we got the records from the previous hospital, we found out she pulled the same act to a lesser degree the night before. After she was medically cleared, the police took her to jail, and my final words to her were, "Good luck in the clink." She was charged and given jail time for that and multiple parole violations. Story 10. I worked at a theater. I saw a father pressing his child's head down to get him below the minimum height to not have to pay for a ticket for the child. The child was in pain. Ended up in a screaming match with the dad. Well, I guess the system was designed for children who are small enough to not take up a seat. Sit with parents in one seat without having to pay. They then decided that this height, or size in 90 centimeters, around 3 feet, to be the cutoff point after which the parents need to buy a seat for the child. It's not so much that your child is young enough to not have to pay to watch a movie, more like your child is small-sized enough to not have to take up a seat. So one ticket entitles you one seat. You can buy a ticket for a seat for your child under 90 centimeters if you want to use the second seat for your child or your bags. It isn't free seating. You get to choose which seats you want, so no one else has a claim on the seats you bought. I bet the dad's next move is going to be stuffing the kid into his oversized popcorn bucket. Story 11. As a surgeon, I try to remain calm and steady about most everything. Even all the staff comments about how I'm the most calm surgeon they've ever met. One time, taking out someone's gallbladder, the assistant needs to grab it and hold it up so I can free stuff up. A new person was helping me and moving a little too fast without seeing where their instrument was going before grabbing the gallbladder. When the camera finds the grasper, they end up poking a small hole in the liver. I let out an audible sigh and a small grumble. Ended up not hurting all that much, and the rest of the surgery went fine. One of these days, I want to throw instruments like some other people I know just to see how people react. Story 12. I never liked playing football in general, just because I wasn't an aggressive person. But in 5th grade, I had a teammate who, during practice scrimmages, would always line up across from me. At the snap, he would grab me by the face mask and pull me to the ground. I let it go on for most of the season until I started having neck issues and pains, and still do. During one of our final practices, I was getting water across the field and decided enough was enough. I sprinted full charge across the field, sacked him with all my weight, and while I pinned him down under me, grabbed his face mask and repeatedly slammed his head into the dirt until my coaches pulled me off him. After practice, I was running laps until my mom came to get me, and when the season ended, I decided to switch to basketball. Story 13. I was in charge of a rollover trainer once at a military training site. Think of a Humvee on an axle that spins, like a rollover accident. Part of the safety brief before anyone goes in is to empty their pockets of all items. Take any items on belts off. We have rubber items inside to simulate crap flying. We do this for safety's sake. Part of the training is we stop the trainer on its side or roof so the participants can get exposure to assisting the other passengers and exit the vehicle safely and quickly. It's been a long, boring day. Scott, and like all good army training, I am hungover and irritated. All officers and they are listening for crap. We stop the exercise on the roof for a group and they all exit except one who can't undo the seatbelt. I open the door and reach in and place my hand on a dual-edged 4-inch boot weapon. I absolutely lost my crap. I saw red. My ears burned and I distinctly remember seeing one of the other instructor's mouth. Oh, crap. I'd shoot out every freaking officer there, all of whom outranked me, many of whom outranked my commander. Didn't matter. As my position was safety officer, I went on a tirade. I turned around after it is done and my best friend is freaking recording it on his phone. That schmuck showed that clip the rest of the week and for years after him. I miss that guy every day. Story 14. In 6th grade, a group of some 4 kids took monopoly of the back of the bus. A true power move. I always minded my own business and tried to sit away from them. For one, they all didn't understand basic hygiene and smelled even though they were older than me. Anyway, turns out the bus driver was their quiet, retired grandpa, who would never tell them to stop pestering or doing dumb crap. So one time they were having a freaking war, as in they screamed across the seats at each other as they jumped seats for cover. I then proceeded to take my Pearson history book, one of those big, heavy, hardcover textbooks, and smashed him with it. Granted, this was me telling them to stop their nonsense several times. It stopped after that. Anyway, the book cover broke and I had to pay at the end of the year, but I regret nothing. Story 15. I'm a bit more quick to anger these days, but as a child, I was fairly quiet and such. When I was in 6th grade, I think, I was always forced to go to church every Sunday and Wednesday. Perks of growing up in the Bible Belt. I've always been a pretty heavy reader, and like most kids at that time, I was heavily into the Harry Potter series. The people at the church my mother forced me to attend decided that those books were not only of the devil himself, but also surely corrupting me. They took every opportunity to tell me so. Making matters worse, the son of my Sunday school teacher decided he was responsible for correcting my devilish ways. In addition to pastoring me about these books every chance he got, he also began getting physical about it. I pretty much just let it all go because it was just a bunch of idiots. What did I care? That is until he messes with my face. Twice. I chased him down and proceeded to roughen him. I've only been in a few fights, but I've never been in one where I was this absolutely livid. It never bothered me about my choice in books again. I stopped being forced to go to church, so I guess it all worked out okay. Story 16. My friend and I were walking home from high school. Sophomore year, I think. It was really bothering me and kept lightly tripping me the whole walk home. I kept asking him to stop, but he didn't. For context, I did get picked on in high school, so maybe this moment was just the breaking point for some other incident. When we got near where we would separate, he did the tripping thing one last time and I lost it. I swung my backpack at him. High school, remember? So I had heavy books, lunch bag, etc. Here's the part where he really effed up. He was carrying a balls of wood bridge home that he needed to complete for some class. When I swung the backpack, he dropped the bridge. I ran directly at him, but then saw another, better target. I could have kicked a 60-yard field goal. I grabbed my bag, turned, and walked as he stared at his scattered work, saying in a shocked voice, "You broke my bridge." I replied, "I don't give a crap," or something to that effect. 15 years later, and he's one of my best friends. Story 17. I worked at a diner with an open kitchen. You can see us, and we can see you. I'm the only cook during the lunch rush when I hear a lady shout, "Hey!" I look over, and a lady sitting in a booth points at me and then does a very condescending, "come here" motion with her finger. I thought something was wrong with her food, so I decided I can run out of the kitchen, leaving 4 orders on the grill, and see what I need to fix. She has no food on her table. She holds her blue soda cup out to me and asks, "What is this?" Excuse me? Why is my root beer in a soda cup and not a mug? Like, I don't know, I'm just the cook. Oh great, another freaking idiot in this freaking place who doesn't know anything. She then proceeds to chew me out because I, the cook, do not know why the server gave her root beer in a cup. Those special root beer mugs, but the servers couldn't find them. Someone misplaced them. I apologize and head back into the kitchen while she's loudly talking crap about me to the next booth to find that all of my orders are ruined. And more had been coming in. It's already stressful working in a kitchen, and that was the last straw. I went in back, started screaming, and kicked the crap out of the walk-in cooler. When I went back out, everyone was quiet and avoided eye contact. Even the lady with the issues still looked pretty mad, though. I rushed through the orders, and thank God she left without saying anything. I didn't get in trouble, though, since my manager was serving and had to deal with her as well. He understood. Story 18. My car broke down yesterday. I was stuck on the side of the highway on a bridge with no exact reference to where I was. Called roadside assistance. They couldn't help because I didn't know my location, so I ended up calling 911. They say an officer is coming, so in the meantime, I call back insurance to try to get the tow truck. At this point, I've been in my car for about 40 minutes, just roasting and panicking. But I finally get connected and explain how I'm on the side of the road. I'm okay, but 911 is coming because I don't feel safe in my location. I explain how I just want to give them my location so I can get my car towed, and the lady says, "Your guitar? You have to get your guitar?" I flipped. It was a mixture of crying and yelling, but I was shouting, "Are you serious? My car! My guitar?" This went along for a couple of minutes. No, I ended up apologizing later and explained how I was just scared, but geez, lady. Yeah, I broke down at the side of the road and I needed to get my guitar towed. For clarification purposes, I knew where I was, but not exactly where I was. I didn't call 911 because I was lost. I called an officer to come help me because cars were getting really close and I knew it'd be at least an hour before any tow truck came. After I called 911 and told them my location, they helped me specify my exact mile marker. Even with that information, insurance was still unable to help me. I told the officer what I told the insurance company, and at that point, the officer asked me if I just wanted him to get a tow truck, and I said yes. Story 19. I lost my crap one time when I was little, somewhere in the 5 to 10 range. That doesn't sound out of the ordinary, but I was a quiet, reserved kid who didn't do much out of line. Anyway, I have an older brother who tormented me all the time. This day had been particularly crappy, but I still just took it and coped. My mom made burritos for dinner. I love burritos, but only if it's well put together. Sloppy sandwiches drive me crazy. Anyway, my brother and I are sitting down, waiting for my parents to sit at the dinner table too. My brother sees that I'm excited and is a bit privy to my sandwich pet peeve. So he takes his index finger and smashes it down into my burrito as hard as he can. I get upset. So then he just open palm smashes the burrito on my plate into an absolute mess. I lose my crap and whip the burrito at him, missing and nailing the wall. Parents walked in just when I threw the burrito on the wall. They freeze. And then instead of yelling at me, they immediately ask my brother, "What did you do to him?" Hearing that I would not be punished and that they knew it was my brother's fault without seeing what happened made it a little bit better. I don't think I ever ended up getting a burrito that night though. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 20. This lady came to the shelter to see the cats. She asked if she could give them treats and I said yes. It's a shelter where most of the cats are free. So gets the bag out, the cats are getting wild with anticipation and she just stood there laughing and tempting them without giving them anything. She looked like she enjoyed their anxiety and her laugh sounded like a crazy person. I lost it. Grabbed the bag out of her hands, gave treats to the cats and asked her to leave. Those cats are already stressed out. Don't give them more anxiety. I'm surprised she didn't try to pay for the treats with Monopoly money. Story 21. Just this week when 2 pit bulls forced their way under my fence and mauled my dog. I always worried that if crap went down and had to act in an emergency, I would freeze up. Didn't happen. I called 911, screaming at the dispatcher that they were terminating my dog, begging the police to get there. I was pounding on the window, screaming at the dogs at the same time. Just pure terror and helplessness. I was sure she was going to pass away. But instead, those dogs are gone and my little pitty is going to recover. After I calmed down, I told one of the officers to apologize to the dispatch lady for me. Story 22. In the 8th grade, I decided to join the school wrestling team. I was overweight and not very good at wrestling, but I still tried. Every day after practice, while waiting for parents to pick us up, I would get picked on by any of a number of the other team members. One day, one of the guys decided to take it to the next level and punched me. I stood there stunned with my ears ringing. And then rage took over. I was wearing a hoodie sweatshirt. And with my left hand, I reached over and grabbed the hood and held tight while delivering uppercuts, while he tried to escape, running backwards. After what seemed like around 15 straight punches, I finally let go and he continued to run backward. He stopped running backward after a few seconds, then came running back towards me. I'm thinking, oh great, here we go again. He got about halfway back to me and let out a wail that sounded like a combined scream and wolf howl, and then dropped to the ground crying. I turned around to a crowd of wide-eyed and stunned bystanders, and I walked to the door while they tended to him. The next day, he came to school with 2 black eyes swollen shut and bruises all over his face. The wrestling coach basically told the team to stop messing with me, and that was literally the last time I ever got into a fight. It was nearly 40 years ago. Story 23. My son was maybe 8 months old and had recently been diagnosed as profoundly deaf. Deaf kids will often inhale to make vibrations and noise that they can somewhat hear for stimulation. We were on pins and needles as I just lost my job, and our insurance and the cochlear implant surgery was going to cost us $170,000. We'd have to sell the house and one of the cars. We needed a break, and our in-laws took us to the food court at a local mall. Our boy started to inhale and gasp. Needs a roughening. A fat 20-something said not so quietly to her friends at the table next to us. I rarely scream in public, and I'm generally non-confrontational, but a stream of words issued from my mouth for a good 10 minutes that would have put a sailor to shame. I found it couldn't stop, and I got on the verge of Bukowskian poetry. I insulted her mother, her weight, and her pinched-faced friends. I launched into the smell of her, how fat she was, how she'd only be able to reproduce with a blind idiot as she was uglier than the devil on fire, and it only progressed from there. F. Lee Ermey's Marine drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket would have told me to tone it down a bit. I told her he was deaf and that we couldn't stop it, and this was a goddamn food court in a southern town filled with inbred redneck ignorant mutant troglodytes that embarrassed normal troglodytes. The food court was silent and all the eyes were upon us. And it progressed from there. She got up and left crying. I can honestly say the whole rant was involuntary. I've never done anything like this before and have not done it since. I feel bad for her to this day. Story 24. Was a camp executive at my high school and was responsible for the entire guy's side during our week-long camping trip. As a quick backstory, there were 7 execs, 3 boys and 4 girls in charge of about 140 students. The teachers had divided the girls and guy sides into different colors to make various groups for the activities we'd be doing all week. Out of the 140 students we had to watch over, there were about 40 leaders. Those that were to monitor their respective teams, and the rest were campers. For the most part, the majority of the guys were pretty chill. A little loud, but we're following the rules. I don't mind a little noise as long as everyone's in their rooms when lights out happens, the time whereby no one should leave their cabins at night, unless to use the restroom. However, there was this one cabin, the freaking purple team. Lord help me here. I kept getting noise complaints from the other leaders regarding the purple team's cabin to the point where the teachers were getting frustrated with us execs. If the campers make too much noise, it was the job of the leaders to handle it. If they can't, then the execs have to step in. If execs can't handle it, then the teachers have to step in, and no one really wants that. So I've gotten multiple complaints from almost every team about the purple team that I go in to check it out. As soon as I stepped inside, not only was it loud, but there was a distinct smell. A very earthy smell. I flipped the heck out. Not because I have any problems with grass, but because if the teachers were to come down, this trip would be over before it even started. I don't think I've ever gotten that angry in my life before, and I don't think I got another noise complaint the rest of the week. Story 25. The way I had been detained during the 12th of June protests in Moscow last year, the actual protest was on Tverskaya Street. It is normally a huge street with heavy car traffic, but on that day it was blocked and full of people. The thing went super smoothly. We had a good time with friends. It was pretty calm. The thing ended and we decided to go home. We went from Tverskaya Street into the neighboring small side street, went to a bar, had a beer. It was all nice. We were happy. No one has been in contact with police. Then we walked around a little and decided to go home. At that point, the protest was over, but the Omen forces were still there. So I noticed on our way a lonely police officer. Come to him and ask if we can get this way to the closest subway station. I can see it about 600 meters in front of me. Or it is closed. It might have been. Who knows? He's polite and says it is okay and we can go there. I thank him, turn right, and start walking towards the subway station. Next thing I see is 4 Omen guards marching towards me in the street in a line. For some reason, I'm in front of my group by about 4 meters, I guess. I was rushing to finally go home. That was a mistake. So I obviously don't want to get in the way of the guards and go to the sidewalk, but they probably interpreted it as me trying to escape from them, even though they were just going somewhere. They weren't walking towards specifically me. So the next thing that happens is that 2 of them in a matter of seconds rush towards me, kick me on the ground, and lift me up and bring me to the side of the police bus where they rudely search me and call me names, and then throw into the thing. All of that with my girlfriend screaming at the top of her lungs behind me in fear. I can't see her, but just hear her voice. Just the way they did it and the whole situation makes me angry to this day. It wasn't even in the place of the protest, so it might have just been a random dude whom they found, like that could be a part of the protest because of my age. I had no attributes, like flags or posters. I was dressed in a very neutral way and just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. If you're interested, what happened next is that I sat in that bus for an hour, then we went to a police station on the other side of the city. Sat in the bus some more. There were about 10 detained people in my bus, on the territory of the police station, and some good cop, bad cop for about 2 hours, and they released me. 3 months later, I got a fine of about $400 for taking part in an unlawful protest via email. Story 26. So, earlier this year, my health insurance got messed up. I started making too much money to qualify for my state's Medicare, so healthcare.gov requested a notification from NJ Family Care to confirm I wasn't on it anymore. So in January, I called them to get said notification. They say, yeah, you should get it in a couple weeks. It never comes. Unfortunately, I had forgotten about it until healthcare.gov sends me a message that they're going to raise my insurance costs if I don't get them the message in the next 2 weeks. So I called NJ Family Care again and explained to them the situation. They once again claim they're going to send me the notice and don't. So now, after getting an extension from healthcare.gov about this, I call up NJ Family Care once more and attempt to explain the situation, politely requesting the cancellation notice, but the woman on the phone gets into an attitude with me, saying some stupid crap like, this is the cancellation department, right? And I lost my crap. What the freak is your problem? I don't understand why the heck you can't just send me this freaking letter. What's happening over there? Just look in the freaking file and cancel it. Yes, you witch. I know this is the cancellation department. I want to notice that it's canceled. I must have scared the crap out of her because the next thing she said was, I'll go get my supervisor. We'll solve the problem in 10 minutes. And I got my cancellation notice 3 days later. Story 27. I had a job filling vending machines in my mid-30s and was servicing one of my larger accounts that we called full service. Basically, they had soda, snacks, and cold food machines. Most of the customers, while on their break, would come over to me and request certain items. That was not a problem, but there was this one guy that would take it too far. A 21-year-old know-it-all. He would stand next to me during his breaks, and he would constantly tell me how to do my job better and tell me about complaints other employees had. But they were not telling me in person. Those complaints almost seemed made up, just so he can have something to say. So one day, while I had the food machine door open and I was checking the expiration dates of the milk, he kept interrupting me and telling me not to miss the dates in the milk, and to make sure this is an even amount of chocolate and whole milk. I lost it. I stood up, I got right in his face. I didn't yell, but I said loudly enough for others to hear, "Why do you always come over here and nag me while I'm trying to do my job? How would you like it if I went and started jumping up and down in the bed while your mom was trying to do her job?" He got extremely red and looked like he wanted to hit me, and he walked away. I immediately shut and locked all of my machines and left. I called my really good friend who was a supervisor at the time and told him to be expecting a phone call because I'm probably going to get fired. Never got the call, and the kid finally left me alone. Story 28. Maybe not exactly answering this, but there was that time my stupid English teacher started throwing around a smaller notebook that I was using for notes to make a warning to others without bothering to listen to me. It was my personal rough book that I was writing extra notes in and not something that's meant for inspections and such. That was a big shock, considering in these parts you're brought up to treat everything concerning knowledge and learning with utmost respect. And to make an actual scene there, considering he's a massive fat idiot who enjoys making guys cry, but I did keep it in mind and lost my crap at an open house where he was busy boasting to all the parents about how scared we are of him. Also our class teacher, at which point I looked at him directly in the eyes and said that definitely wasn't the case with him. That was definitely the most polite way I could let loose at him. Very satisfying too. The idiot left in a year for lucrative salaries, but not before me and my parents let a bunch of other senior teachers know about his true character. Story 29. This happened in some club ages ago. I was bouncing around on the dance floor with everybody else and apparently stepped on some dude's foot who had been standing there with his posse of 2 or 3 other guys watching people. I shrugged and apologized and turned around to leave. Right then, somebody smacked me in the back of the head. Not hard, but too hard to ignore. I turned around, still calm, and said something like, "Look, I'm gonna walk this way. You guys stay here and nothing more needs to happen." Turned around again. Got smacked in the head again. I was very much angry at that point. Didn't help that they looked at me all innocent. I couldn't even tell which one of them did it. So I just stuck my finger in the face of the dude whose foot I allegedly stepped on and recommended he don't do it again. Turned around once more, waiting to get smacked in the head again. This time they poured a glass of beer in my back. That's when I completely lost my crap. Threw myself around and went straight at the guy. I was in full rage mode and didn't care what happened next as long as that guy suffered. I could tell by the terrified look in his face he realized he had gone too far. His friends never stepped in to help him. After a while, people separated us, and that was that. I have no sympathy at all for people who resort to violence for solving their problems, but feel no shame for having snapped in that situation. I think I did everything in my power to avoid what eventually happened. Story 30. During a group project during last year of what would be high school, I'd been feeling pretty depressed for a while, and during that time, all my emotions were locked away and kept boiling as if they were in some sort of pot. 2 girls in a group decided the day before the actual presentation that it would be a great idea to make some sort of performance, and I said that there simply wasn't enough time to practice. The 2 girls got slightly angry or irritated that I was willing to give up the idea so easily, so they decided to call the teacher for something like a group meeting. During the meeting, I told them about my thoughts and my reasoning, and these 2 chicks decided to blame every problem on me, even though I had finished everything I was in charge of. The last line they said was, "Don't sit there and feel sorry for yourself." And the pot boiled over. releasing every single emotion that had been staring and came out as anger. I smashed my hand down on the table and most likely spouted some words that they most certainly didn't deserve. Not their fault. I was feeling like crap. As I walked out, I punched one of the tables fairly hard so that the bubblegum that had been stuck underneath fell down on the floor, and then I walked out. The two girls started crying. My best friend laughed it off, and the other two girls were just shocked. Some time passed, and I apologized, but I'm actually quite happy that the whole thing happened, simply because they made me feel emotions again, something which I hadn't felt in a very long time. Story 31. I can remember that day like it was yesterday. I was home, packing my stuff to get ready for when my husband was out of basic training. I never yell or even raise my voice to hardly anyone, ever. My dad has always had a wicked temper, and my sister also had a knack for starting yelling matches with him. One night, she forgot to do something she was supposed to, and the yelling started again. I ignored it up until he called her stupid. He got under my skin, so I spoke up a little, saying that he shouldn't call her that. He hollered back, "You are my daughters. I can talk to you however I want." That's when I snapped. I saw red for the first time in my life, and I completely lost it. I screamed back at him how I was tired of him treating us like garbage when he lost his temper, and how we hid in the back room with my mom until he cooled off, and how all I wanted was to visit my family before I had to move over 12 hours away from them. I also threatened that if he ever wanted to see me again, that he needed to shut up and sit in the corner until he was done throwing a fit. I yelled at him for the first time in my life for a solid 30 minutes. I didn't stop until everything I had to say built over the years was out, and I saw him go from red-faced angry to what seemed to be guilt-ridden. When I finally stopped, he was quiet, didn't say a word, and walked away. Shortly after I moved out, he went to a doctor and has been put on some medication to help with his anger issues. Now he's super friendly. I haven't heard him throw a tantrum like he used to in over 10 years now. He's never spoken poorly to me or my sister since then either. Story 32. Driving to work several years ago, about a 40-minute drive. Wintertime in MN. There was a small chip in my windshield. Started off to work at 5 a.m. First, my gas pedal freezes down, so I'm going 100 miles per hour trying to reach down and unstick my pedal. Got it unstuck. Avoid heart attack. Come upon stop and go traffic not 5 minutes later. As I'm sitting in traffic, I watch the aforementioned chip in my windshield start to spider. Slowly, a large crack moves across the glass. I could feel the rage building, seething anger. Nothing could stop. I completely lose my mind with rage in the car. I calm down enough to take my exit. It's about 3 miles from the exit to work. Got pulled over in the parking lot, at work, for a broken windshield. I lost my crap after the officer left for about 20 minutes in the parking lot. Went to work. Story 33. There have been multiple times where someone has cut me in line where I've freaked out. I'm the calmest, chillest person I know. I don't have a lot of nagging stress in my life, so it's pretty hard to get me angry. But when someone cuts me in line, I just can't help but get mad. I'm following society's rules. I'm waiting in line. Everyone else is waiting in line. Why can't you wait in line? I don't care what age, race, or gender someone is. I will fully flip my crap when someone cuts me in line. Not at first, though. First, I'll inform them there's a line. If they ignore me or tell me they don't care, I'll calmly explain to them that they have to wait in line just like everyone else. If they continue their behavior, I'll just blatantly cut in front of them. If all has failed with my normal tone of voice, every person who cuts in front of me sees me go insane. Story 34. I was sitting on the ground at a bus stop because there were no seats in the benches. I had headphones in. An older man got off the bus and stood in front of me. I looked up and said, "Hi." I'm back at my phone. He motioned for me to take my phones out, so I did. He said something I couldn't understand, so I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know what you're saying." I put my phones back in. He bent down, yanked my headphones out, and proceeded to whisper something about prices and hotels and intimacy. I don't actually know what happened next. I do know that I stuck my fist somewhere behind his knee and knocked him over, then started shouting that this man was soliciting me. It wasn't really a decision so much as a thing that my body just did. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.